Welcome back to the Unleashed. I'm your host, Jared Beeler. Okay, I said I was going to talk about it. Area 51. Ever since this thing first came out, I couldn't believe it. I watched when it was at 200,000, and then it went up over a million, then it was 1.3 million. I've been wanting to talk about it the whole time. This is extremely interesting, and I find the whole timing of the whole thing just incredible. But I've been wanting to talk about it. This is the kind of stuff that I like to talk about. It's very exciting, and the way things are lined up, I'm telling you guys, I still think it's this year. I think the whole thing is, and the way that it's looking right now, and I got that fun feeling where the vacation's already started. We're just getting through all the preliminary stuff where people are getting their last suitcases and stuff, and you're waiting for them, but you're already packed and ready to rock and roll, and it's about to get really awesome. And so right now, that's kind of the mood that I'm in, but I'm watching all this stuff, especially the war front and everything else. But this Area 51, this one caught me by surprise a little bit. It's something I wasn't expecting, but when I heard it, it's like, you guys can't help, I can't help but think about that massive UFO that was in the beginning of my vision that was over the lake, about 2 miles wide. And the whole timing of the thing, of that kicking off before the rapture happens and stuff. So, very interesting timing. But, man, Area 51, there's been so much crazy speculation and different stories about it. But, I just want to talk a little bit about it. Area 51, I heard this interesting story. It was a few weeks ago, and it was a guy that, some engineer of some sorts. And they brought him down there in 71. And he was saying at the time, he was like, it wasn't even on the map. They didn't know what it was when they took him there. And they brought him inside a big old hangar, and the pipes came up and stuff like that, and they took him underground, and he counted about 200 feet down, and it opened up into huge, massive facility, a few stadiums wide and stuff like that. And there was stores and computer rooms and things like that. And they took him to the far end of the room, and they opened it up with a hand scanner and facial recognition, and he was saying they were still a few years out from Texas Instruments coming out with a smart calculator. So this was some serious advanced stuff, and this was in 71. And anyways, he goes inside this room, and they pull this veil on this machine, and what he realizes why they brought him down there, stuff like that, it's a gigantic replica, but kind of their own version of like a fusion reactor engine. He had built one, and it was on his desk, and he had used tons and tons of wire and stuff like that. But he said that the way this thing was made, it had no bolts or anything like that. It was so smooth in the way that it was. And as soon as I heard him start to describe it, I got this incredible feeling that this reactor engine was growing. Now, I've seen him talk about this kind of stuff with nano machines and things like that, if they're going to inject them in your body and hit basically putting electronics and stuff on viruses or whatever else, and they would use the organic subject that they know where it goes out to seek things, plus the things that they would install on them, and then they could turn them on and they could kill cancer cells and things like that. But this is at a microscopic level. This thing, he said, was the size of a full-size semi-truck, right? An 18-wheeler. This engine, and it had some sort of exoskeleton thing around it that was that came out. It looked like just like a rib cage, how it would come out from the spine and wrap around, but there was no bolts or anything like that. And when I heard this, I thought it was very, very interesting, and almost like on a massive scale of what they want to do microscopically, but have been doing for years. And this takes on a whole other realm, because it is something that I had really thought about before. And it was very interesting. And well, what you could do with this is, if you could basically create or fundamentally design DNA of something that's partially organic and mix the electronics with it to develop in it almost like veins of gold for running electricity and things like that would grow with it, you could literally have your machines and things grow almost like it's alive. And this is this is a very interesting story that I heard about. But this can get so much bigger. There are things in space, objects in space and stuff like that. They're so massive that are fallen angel technology and stuff like this. And I instantly couldn't help but think about some of this stuff that they've hypothesized and stuff like that. And I'm talking all the way to the size of Dyson spheres, if you guys know what that is, and them being growing. Enter gray time, something I've discussed multiple times, and if you could go back in time to have this thing grow itself, you literally could have structures build after creating it by making a DNA of sorts that's half organic, half machine. And this makes me think about that movie Fire in the Sky, and what he described when he was inside the UFO and stuff like that, and how the things that held humans and stuff like that, when he busted out and woke up in there, it was like organic chambers and things like that, and how much of it is organic, and different stories I've heard where the UFOs or flying saucers are alive, and it takes on a whole other realm, really, to think that some of the stuff could actually be partially alive so that you can grow what you wanted to create. And in a way, it's an organic substance. Very interesting story. Anyways, that one's an Area 51 story. Another, you guys have heard me talk about Billy Faye Woodward, who was brought there and ended up becoming a colonel. He came in as like a butter bar or whatever lieutenant, and yeah, they bumped him up because he had to be, and he was spent underground the whole time there for 11 years. Describes different things at Area 51 that ended up checking out. I'm going to have to give credit to the guy's story. He ended up getting married to an MP that was on the base, and they found her later, and and of course, after he left, because he was going to blow the whistle on some of the stuff, they discredited him, everything like that. But she ended up giving credit, and she was working for some other place, and MUFON or whatever, the alien people that do that kind of that look into that stuff, they ended up getting a hold of her, and she verified the whole thing. So it's pretty interesting. But he talks about underground there, and one of the interesting things is when they started making the underground levels there, they go down about 27. And when you think of these levels, don't think of like just a little storeroom or something like that. These things could be half the size of a valley, massive levels that go down underground. But they went down 27. What they came to, though, were other levels that were created back in time, working their way up from inside the planet. You guys know my whole Hollow Earth thing. And they were created, and they stopped right there, and they were waiting. They knew from back in the past exactly that Ellis Air Force Base, Area 51, would dig down there, and they would be able to attach right to it, which of course says time travel. They know the future, fallen angels and stuff like that, and what they're doing, and they basically built their way up. But interesting stories that anyways, he'd been inside or been invited to go in and meet with the head of the Nephilim giants and stuff like that. About six different times during his career, during the 11 years that he spent in Area 51 and stuff like that, and talked about the monorails and stuff that can go inside the planet. It takes about 11 minutes. They're breaking twice the speed of sound, and they go inside, and it's a whole other world in there and all this other stuff. Pretty wild. Crust of the Earth is about 800 miles thick, and then it goes into a hollow inner sun and stuff like that. But pretty interesting story. And I mean, they've moved stuff around. There's Area 52 in Utah. There's other places. They didn't take the alien bodies there. They took them to Kansas after Roswell. There's Dulce, New Mexico, and the 79 firefight that Phil Schneider talks about. And his story is totally accurate and true. And the levels there and stuff like that. And the guy that I was just talking about when he went down there, same as Phil Schneider talking about like the alien level, like the 4th level underground, they can electrify the atmosphere itself so the light comes off. And of course, we've heard the same thing before from that psychic guy from back in the past, the sleeping psychic, I can't think of his name, Edgar Casey, describing somewhat of the same thing. And anyways, the guy was saying how he didn't see any light fixtures or anything like that, but they can just charge the air and it turns on and it's bright and there's no shadows or anything like that. Very interesting stuff. Of course, alien technology and stuff like that, which is fallen angel stuff. But very interesting. So with the whole storming Area 51 thing, and I'm just throwing out a few backstories and stuff like that because it's on the topic, but with the whole storming Area 51 thing, this is incredible. There's so many things that go through my mind with this. I've heard different ideas before, or people that have talked, that I've heard from God or whatever, or were shown a vision or taken to heaven. I can't remember now because I've heard so many different stories over time, but that World War III would start in a very interesting place. They couldn't remember what it was, but they only know that when they saw it or happened, it was very surprising where it happened. And storming Area 51, if that were to kick things off, Civil War, which ended up rolling over to like a World War, it would be very interesting. You can't find a more peculiar place if there was going to be a war started. So that's one of the things that ended up rolling through my mind instantly when I heard that, But the numbers have increased big time. It started with 200,000, then went up to 1 million, then 1.3, and it's September 20th when they're planning on doing this. So the numbers could keep increasing. What you got to realize here is if even half of those people took a gun with them, you're looking at a major army that even if the U.S. were to pull every soldier and put them there around the base, they wouldn't be able to cover that. That is a massive amount of people. If they want to get serious, they can barge in there and demand secrets. What's this going to cause? What happens if they start shooting back at Americans and they kill a bunch? Is this going to cause an uprising, People want to know the truth. They've been asking about aliens for a long time. Meanwhile, on the fallen angel side, they've told the government multiple times to tell the people. Yet, of course, we know that they're not aliens, they're fallen angels. And every technology and stuff that they have or that they think that they've snuck from aliens to reverse engineering, it has only been allowed for them to know, which means they've been manipulating, calling the shots the whole time. Given the technology, they're way more ahead if they were going to do something, But very interesting. Well, what if the government says, if it is an accident or it's not planned, it's not a psyop, to keep more secrets or even more secrets safe there, let's just release the alien technology right now. Let's talk about it to hush the crowd or whatever, Total possibility. Another one is they end up shooting up a bunch of Americans, and to cover it up on the news media, they start World War III over there in the Persian Gulf. Who knows? There's a number of things that can come from this, but the timing is very interesting. You guys know how I roll with this. If the tribulation starts this year, using the Feast of Trumpets as kind of a stopping point and working back 2,550 days, we get into fluctuation points on where this can go within 30 days or so, starting in the fall. And around September 20th, September 21st, it would be your starting point. Let's see if it ends directly on Feast of Trumpets. What if it goes past? It could start a little bit past around the 24th or something like that. What if it goes a little past and the ending of this whole thing is Feast of Tabernacles? If this is part of Daniel's timeline calculation, it could go up to the end of September, maybe around 1st of October or sometime like that. It's all fluctuation point, but very interesting timing. And as well as not only that being the day that they storm Area 51, that the big plan is, that's also the day that movie Ad Astra comes out. Is that a coincidence? Most likely not. There's something interesting to think about. Somebody made the point, Facebook will shut down anybody for a slight whim. If the government or the military are really that upset about people wanting to storm it, they'd have already got a hold of Facebook and Zuckerberg and told them to shut that thing down, and it hasn't been shut down. This makes me think it's a massive psyop. It's something that's planned, it's going forward, and this could be the year that they decide to release all this. And of course, anytime you're talking about UFOs and stuff like that, I'm thinking about that vision I had because they showed up right there before the rapture happened, and it was about 2 miles a mile in diameter, and they were all over the place. I'm guessing all over the world, but they were in that location when I went up, and it's very interesting to think about. It is a fun topic to talk about, but at the same time, it's very serious with the things that are taking place. This thing over there in Iran, and Hezbollah already forming its positions because they know it's going to happen. Iran making threats. They've already given tons of weapons. They're all on the border of Israel for an attack. Iran's getting ready. They're putting troops on the border. Syria's threatening to go into Golan Heights. All right, here we have Damascus getting destroyed, and the precursors to it. And now UK sending subs and troops over there to Iran. We're not making too big of moves or too brass of talk because we're going to need to make surgical strikes, especially if we're going to try and keep Israel safe in this. This is through strategic planning. We know that God will protect them. But that doesn't mean that Tel Aviv or something can't get hit. Jerusalem's protected through God. All right, that's God's city and stuff like that. But Tel Aviv or something else, they could totally hit that. They could totally nuke that before things kick off. And of course, we know Israel has a Samson initiative. They got all those places on lockdown. And if they want to use nukes on Israel, Israel's not afraid to release all those and blow the whole place sky high. And that would really line up with the old Gog and Magog and stuff like that, especially when it talks about how they're destroyed and their eyes melt in their head and their tongues in their mouth, stuff like that. It sounds totally nuclear to me, but very interesting. And of course, God's the one that takes care of this. So where's America in all this? We might think that we're about to attack Iran. They'd release all the sleeper cells, and America starts getting hit at the same time. And the chaos could be the time that China comes in. They've been threatening us nonstop, and Russia and everything else. So definitely looking like the time that this stuff's going to happen. Of course, I believe this is only going to kickstart World War III, and after this is going to lead to the peace deal that starts the tribulation and stuff like that. And I believe before the nukes fly, that we're going to get raptured. And that's the way that it's looked like for a long time. Things could change a little bit, but if we're in that timeline when it's going to start, and this is Gog and Magog, and it looks like it is, that's about to happen. This is all this year. They're not going to put this off for another year. They're forming and massing the troops right now all over the place, and we're moving troops over there and getting the bases up as fast as possible in Saudi Arabia for backup, because you lose troops, planes, stuff like that, refueling, bombs, and all that stuff, especially if it turns into something that's prolonged a little bit. But once the nukes fly, World War III will be short. All right, what you can do with a nuke hitting like New York City or something like that. I mean, massive devastation. The world will be crying for a savior. The Antichrist is going to pop out and stuff like that. But it's going to go into devastation, and for 7 years, it's not going to get any better. It's going to get more crazy and more crazy. And it'd be interesting to see how this Area 51 thing kicks into this, because it's all happening simultaneously at the same time. And I find that very interesting, and I wanted to talk about it, so at least there's kind of a basis video of me discussing it, and we'll see where it goes. We don't know, but if they keep getting more people involved, 2 million or something like that, there's nothing that the government can do unless they want to start nuking the whole population down there, and that's going to cause an uproar. So it's very interesting. They very well might make it in there, especially if they have guns. If the public has guns with them, I mean, that's a massive army right there. They could literally storm Area 51, even though they don't have the weaponry that the military would have. They have the numbers, and you would basically anthill that whole facility if they started trying to go in there and stuff like that. Who knows what could happen? It would cause a huge uproar, So it's very interesting. The whole timing of the whole thing. It's in the same weeks that I'm looking for if the tribulation were to start this year. It's all around the same time as the annual UN peace deal. There's a number of things. Could they kick off war, which will stop them if this wasn't already planned? Who knows? Who knows where this is going exactly? But it's very, very peculiar at this time in the year that's looking like, hey, this really is looking like the year where it's going to kick off with the war and stuff like that. We got some crazy thing of Area 51 getting stormed and people wanting to go see aliens and stuff like that. And of course, people are going to get a nice glimpse of aliens because when the tribulation starts, they will show up, and the whole agenda is going to be played out, and them planting us here and all that other nonsense and stuff, and it's going to get crazy. The whole world's going to change in an instant, and that's going to be the excuse for the rapture. And heck, after the rapture happens, there could be video all over the world where people that aren't saved, which have no immunity to this sort of thing, could be spotted on camera getting abducted into UFOs. It'll make it that much more realistic. No, that's where they went. I've seen people get pulled up in the ships all over the world. We all have, on mainstream news, right? And it'll be all part of the ploy. That's where people disappear to, because they watch people also do the same thing. When we know as Christians that those getting raptured had nothing to do with the UFOs whatsoever, and it's only a ploy, watching those people get pulled up into ships and stuff like that for those that were left behind and never had a relationship with God. But like I said, the deception is going to be off the chart. There's not going to be anything like it. It's going to fool so many people. It's unbelievable. Unless they've heard about this, unless you've stumbled upon a conversation like this, or it's been saved, or something like that, then then you'll have a chance, but otherwise, it's going to be a massive deception. It's going to blow people away. And I'm seeing I could just imagine flat earthers that don't believe in space or anything like that seeing 2 mile wide or bigger UFOs like Independence Day showing up. And them freaking out and instantly denying everything. Well, God can't be real because that means there's space. That means the Bible's not real. No, your interpretation of it was messed up and you were built on a falsehood because you had other crazy beliefs like replacement theology and hating Jews or being racist or being a witch or some crazy crap that allowed you to fall into that deception in the first place because you love false doctrine. But very interesting times we're in. The whole thing's getting exciting. It's crazy. I've been wanting to talk about this Area 51 thing ever since I first seen it, and I'm still watching to see what's going to happen with the numbers and stuff like that, but it doesn't seem to be slowing down. It seems to be picking up. And I find it interesting. The whole thing is very interesting. The timing's interesting. It's within the same week that I'm looking at for possibly the tribulation to start. Will we be here at that time all the way up to the edge? I don't know. I have no idea. We could go into it. Like I say, always be prepared for something. When the tribulation starts, I do not believe for a second we're going to be here. God's going to take us out. But if there's any sort of precursor of war, bombings, we could see some cities go up or anything like that. There's a total possibility, or we might not. It's hard to say. All I know is I trust in God. I am totally unworried about the whole situation, and I know He's going to take care of it one way or another. I'm about to see Him, and we're about to go home. Very interesting times. But I just wanted to make this real quick. I had to do it tonight. I was planning on it tomorrow, but I'm like, no, I want to talk about it tonight. And Area 51, it's some crazy stuff. And like I say, if something were to start there, a civil war or something like that, because of uproar of people getting shot by the government, and them still demanding answers. It could kickstart a whole cascade of events. So it's interesting. It's interesting to see what will happen, but we'll find out. But anyways, just wanted to talk on it real fast. I'll catch you next time in the Legion. God bless. Bye.